Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're looking at a text that, honestly, at first glance, might just seem like a dry, ancient architectural blueprint. I mean, if you've ever read the book of Second Chronicles, specifically chapter 4, you've probably found yourself just kind of skimming through this huge list of ancient building supplies and measurements. But as we dig into these blueprints together today, we're going to uncover a completely fascinating secret about human fear, divine power, and how we approach the world. So, right off the bat, here is the bizarre core mystery that we are going to unravel. King Solomon was building this grand temple in Jerusalem, right? A super dry, arid, dusty region in the ancient Middle East. And yet, right smack in the middle of the temple courtyard, he constructs this massive ocean-like water feature that the ancient texts explicitly call a sea. I mean, why in the world would you put a giant sea in the middle of a desert temple? What was its purpose? And what was it trying to tell the people who actually saw it? Section 1, the massive structure of Solomon's temple. So the author of 2 Chronicles absolutely loved his detailed lists, but reading them like a spreadsheet makes it way too easy to miss the sheer jaw-dropping scale of what was being built here. Translating these ancient dimensions into something we can actually picture really helps us grasp it. The text says this bronze sea was 10 cubits in diameter, 5 cubits high, and 30 cubits in circumference. To put that into perspective, in modern terms, we are looking at a cast metal basin about 4.5 meters across and 2.25 meters tall. It was taller than a person, wider than most of our modern living rooms, and cast entirely out of solid bronze. Okay, let's dive into this, because the design details in verses 3 and 4 often confuse people, but they're actually beautifully intricate. There are 2 very distinct animal features going on here. First, molded right beneath the brim of this massive basin were 2 rows of tiny ox figures, about 10 per cubit. That means there were roughly 600 of these small, detailed figures wrapping all the way around the rim. Second, the entire colossal structure wasn't just sitting flat on the dirt, it was elevated. It rested squarely on the backs of 12 massive, life-sized bronze bulls, with 3 facing each direction of the compass. Section 2, the overwhelming size of the bronze sea. Now, the physical engineering is really only half the story. The other half is what it actually held, 66,000. That is the number of liters of water this structure held at any given time. The ancient text calls it 3,000 baths, which was their unit of liquid measurement. Think about the logistics for a second here. Gathering, transporting, and storing 66,000 liters of water in one single container in an arid desert climate, that's just staggering. And this brilliantly illustrates just how massive we're talking. A standard modern household bathtub holds roughly 100 to 150 liters of water when you take a bath. If you were to try and fill the bronze sea using your own bathtub at home, you'd have to fill it and empty it hundreds and hundreds of times. Just standing next to it, seeing that sheer volume of water contained in one single place would have been an absolute shock to an ancient worshiper. Section 3. The ancient Near East fear. The sea. So here's where we pivot to a really deep linguistic and cultural mystery. Why call it a sea instead of just a basin or a vat? Well, in Hebrew, the word used is yam. And you have to understand, in the ancient Near East, yam wasn't a place for a fun beach vacation. It represented untamable chaos. It was the dark, churning deep that swallowed sailors whole. In neighboring cultures, Yam was literally the name of a terrifying deity of chaos. The sea was the absolute ultimate symbol of human helplessness and existential fear. Let's look at how this imagery builds into the broader biblical narrative. Right from the second verse of the Bible, Genesis 1:2, we see this exact imagery. Darkness over the face of the deep, this chaotic, formless, watery void. But what happens? The Spirit of God is hovering right over it, showing total mastery over the chaos. We see this again when Moses leads the Israelites to the Red Sea, the Yam Suf. It's this terrifying barrier of chaos, but God simply parts it, completely turning a symbol of fear into a pathway for salvation. God is always bigger than the Yam Sufs. Which brings us to, hands down, the most amazing theological plot twist of Solomon's temple. By taking the sea, the ultimate symbol of wild, unpredictable, terrifying chaos, and casting it into completely immovable, solid bronze, God is making a profound statement. This chaotic force is now sitting perfectly still, resting quietly on the backs of bronze bulls, serving as a simple tool right in the middle of God's front yard. He's demonstrating to everyone who walks in that he has completely conquered and contained the chaotic forces of the world. Section 4. A purity tool for priests.
Okay, the chaos is tamed, but what did they actually do with it? Verse 6 gives us deliberate instructions on its use. The text points out a crucial division of cleaning resources. Solomon also made 10 smaller basins, placing 5 on the right and 5 on the left. These smaller basins were strictly for washing the animal sacrifices, the objects used in the burnt offerings. So the crucial point is, what about the massive 66,000-liter bronze sea? It had one exclusive purpose. It was just for washing the priests. This massive monument of tamed chaos was completely reserved for the humans leading the worship. And the deep spiritual logic here is incredibly powerful. God is saying that the ritual, the sacrifice, the program, that's all secondary. If a spiritually unclean priest tries to offer a perfectly clean animal sacrifice, the entire act of worship becomes invalid. The purity of the person approaching God is the absolute prerequisite. Before you do the work, before you run the ceremony, you must pass by the bronze sea and let the water cleanse you. Personal cleansing comes before absolutely everything else. Section 5, our spiritual worship today. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm not an ancient priest slaughtering animals in the desert. Fair enough, but the architectural lesson built into this masterpiece applies directly to us today. Because here's the truth. In modern spiritual terms, we are all called to be royal priests. That means the massive, chaotic, swirling anxieties of your life, your personal yum, is already tamed. It rests quietly under God's total control. We aren't supposed to stare at the sea in terror. We're supposed to use it to remind us of God's power, wash ourselves of the daily dirt, and approach our lives with a cleansed heart.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. As you go about your day, what is the sea of fear that's blocking your path right now? What is the chaos in your life that you think is completely untamable? Remember the bronze sea. That chaos is already conquered. Leave the worldly panic behind, cleanse your heart from the noise, and walk boldly through the courtyard today, fully focused on living a pure and focused life. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this ancient blueprint changes how you see your modern world.